I made a mistake making that video. All right, what's going on, my fellow subscribers? So I'm making a video in response to the last video that I made on my YouTube channel. I got a lot of traction in that video. A lot of people were commenting, a lot of people were messaging me really privately, a lot of things on socials, just a lot of stuff going around, and very mixed response in the video that I posted. A lot of it positive, and a lot of people starting conversations that are positive, but I found the majority of the conversations just led to meaningless conversations and meaningless discussions. You know, there was no real actions based on that. So the first thing that I got addressed, I've got a bunch of stuff written on a piece of paper here, but the first thing that got mainly addressed in the comments as well as in my DMs was doping. Drum roll. Everyone always talks about doping. Whenever we put a video up that's somewhat controversial and there's some topic there, even if you touch on doping from 15 seconds, all of a sudden that becomes the highlight of the video, and that's all people want to talk about, anti-doping. I don't want to really talk about this anymore on my channel because I just don't feel like there's anything to talk about. I mean, if you are a part of a professional sport and you're a part of elite sport at a high level, you know what's going on, you understand how it works. If you're not a part of it, you just don't understand how it works. It's pretty black and white. That's my honest opinion on it. If you think someone is winning medals because they're just injecting themselves with steroids, you don't know weightlifting. You don't understand how professional sport works, because that's not the truth, yeah? And a lot of people are going to hear that statement and think that's super controversial. It's true. You can't create a Olympic champion from just taking performance enhancing drugs. It doesn't work like that. There are so many other factors going into an athlete becoming the best, athlete possible. Flexibility, mobility, motivation, injury prevention. On top of that, their genetics, their bone structures, their injury, status. Some people just naturally are prone to getting more injuries than others. Some people get luckier, some people don't, training age. There's so many things. I could talk about this for ages, right? But people just cut all that out and immediately say it's steroids, So that's where I have a bit of a problem when it comes to the topic of doping. So that's kind of why, I know I said in the last video I wanted to make a video on this talk going a bit deeper into it, but I just don't really see a point going into it. Because like I said, if you're at that level, you understand it, you know how it works. If you're not at that level, you pretty much just assume it's doping. You just think athletes are only better than you. You think you snatch 60 kilos and this athlete snatches 180 kilos. You just think, well, it's because they take drugs. But it's not the truth. Like, it is a part of it for sure, like I said, but it's not the entire truth. So I think whenever there's a discussion, like I said, on doping, it just takes over the whole video. And like I said, last week's video was not to talk about doping. It was a topic, a part of the video talking about my problems with weightlifting and things that need to be addressed and ways to address those issues like that. It was a small part of the video. It wasn't the whole video, but everyone, pretty much 90% of my DMs were going on about doping. Like, oh, I saw your opinion on doping. Like, what do you think about this person? Or people sending me other athletes going, oh, do you think they're on drugs? Like, it just completely took away the point of the video. And I personally didn't like it. So for that reason, I'm not going to be talking about doping anymore on my page. It's controversial for sure. It gets views, it gets discussions, but it's for the wrong reasons. And I don't believe that's the right thing. So yeah. The second point that came up behind doping was the funding, okay? A lot of people reached out to me, different athletes from different sports, actually. I had athletes from swimming, I had athletes from wrestling, I had athletes from a bunch of different sports, Olympic sports I'm talking about here, and they were kind of saying their same experience. I also had athletes from weightlifting from years ago, like early 2000s, late 90s, even people in the mid 2000s, old school weightlifters from Australia reaching out to me, sharing their experiences with me and telling me basically the exact same thing. For example, early 2000s, late 90s was when basically Australian weightlifting had this Bulgarian takeover. Basically, all the ex-Bulgarian lifters, Armenian, USSR, all these lifters came over to Australia and basically started representing Australia and basically took all the money, and they basically paid them full wages for them to train full time, and all the homegrown talent from Australia got nothing. So it was a very similar situation in regards to what I kind of went through with the funding situation, where sort of one athlete got everything and the other two didn't. So it was a similar type of situation. So what I got from that whole discussion, and this was probably a more productive conversation, was that the funding issue is still an issue and nothing has changed. There's still favoritism. There's still people given more funding than others. And again, it's a controversial thing, and it's at the discretion of the federation. The Institute provides the funding, the Olympic Commissions, the Olympic Association, and the Commonwealth Games Association provide funding. How the federation wants to distribute that is how they want to distribute that. And really, we can talk about it all we want, but what whatever gets done. And I kind of felt like the conversations I was having with people, I sort of felt like I was just becoming a bit of a crybaby. I just kind of felt like I was just being a victim. And I don't like that, because I like to state points and move on and make solutions to the problems. But with the issue of funding, there really isn't a solution. And as sad as it is to say that, it's just the truth, right? And that's just kind of how it's structured. So on that whole issue of funding, it is what it is. We just digress and I guess move on with it. So that's it. So I had a few of these people reach out to me and talk about the political situation in weightlifting, specifically in Australia. And I did touch on that, not for a long time, but again, a little comment gets taken out of proportion and everyone obsesses over certain things, like I said, with doping. But with the political landscape and the politics and the issues that I've experienced in weightlifting, obviously, that was not the point of the video. I only touched on that briefly. It was literally the tip of the iceberg. I don't really want to go into more details, I just feel like I'm being a victim. If I'm talking about this happened to me and that happened to me and this wasn't fair, my coach got banned for no reason and my partner got banned for 6 months and we had to pay for lawyers to deal with this and blah, 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 blah. Like, who cares? It happened. It was something that was shit, yeah, for sure. No athlete should have to go through that. No coach should have to go through that. It's not right, but it happened, And again, I sometimes fall into the trap of going, cry wolf, oh my God, why did this happen? I feel better like that, It is what it is. Hopefully the political landscape is getting better. But I was having conversations with athletes from different sports, some athletes from athletics as well, AA, Athletics Australia. It's the same shit. It's the same thing. There's certain people running the sport. They don't put the money in the right spots. Certain athletes get more money. Other athletes that are ranked lower get more money. There's always some political issue, right? There's always someone getting more favoritism. There's always, some person's getting banned for saying something or whatever. There's always some stupid shit. So I've learned with politics that, you just let it run its course, do your thing. I stay in my own lane. I try to not get involved. Politics, no real point going on about them. It is what it is. There's some shit that's happened, but, bitching about it and moaning about it doesn't really achieve anything. It just brings up unnecessary conversations that don't achieve anything or solve anything, I've even had journalists and that reach out to me, want to talk about this crap, I've had conversations with them. But again, I always come back to this same thought, why am I just talking about this, on calls, having meetings with different journalists, talking about it. It's like, at the end of the day, nothing's going to change. Like, it's going to probably make me look like I'm putting my reputation on the line for a story, and nothing's even going to change, because they're probably just going to look at it. They're going to look at me in ill and think I'm against them, and nothing's going to change. So politics is hard because it's kind of one person against everyone, right? But yeah, that's my stance on politics. I don't want to make that my channel. My channel is about uplifting people. My channel is about making weightlifting better, giving you guys informative content, letting you guys see my training, maybe full day meetings, all those different types of thing. I don't want to make it all about politics, corruption, all that stupid stuff. So let's leave it there. Community, okay? So I pretty much roasted the Oz weightlifting community for not being more inviting and not being more friendlier. And I don't regret that. I still believe what I said. That's still my experience. I did have a lot of people reach out to me, specifically athletes, and saying they had the exact same experience. They felt kind of like they were alienated. They felt like people were against them. They got accusations of doping, accusations of being cheaters, all those kind of things. Again, it's just going to happen. And I wanted to talk more about this in regards to something that happens in Australia a lot. For my international viewers, you might not know what this is called, but there's a thing in Australia called tall poppy syndrome. And basically, this is something where if you're doing really well, everyone will just try their best to bring you down, okay? So it's a concept that's actually pretty big in Australia, and whether you agree with it or not is irrelevant, because it happens all the time. But in my experience, being at a high level, tall poppy syndrome is very, very prevalent. And these other athletes reaching out to me, not only from weightlifting, mainly weightlifting, but different sports, have had the exact same experience. People accusing them of things, people saying that they got lucky, all these different things, right? Just because they're doing better than them. And these other people that say that, really, they struggle to take a step back and think far out. Like, what if I trained a little bit longer, or did a bit more work in my warm-ups, or put in a little bit of time in my mobility, my rehab? Maybe I could be a better lifter overall, versus me just putting down this person because they're better than me and just accepting that they're better than me, So yeah, I want to talk more about that. So tall poppy syndrome is a big thing, and that was a big topic that actually came up in conversation. So just wanted to address that. But yeah, that was pretty much my thoughts on the whole community thing. Tall poppy syndrome is a big issue. It always is going to be an issue, really, in Australia. It's just embedded in our culture. I even experienced this, obviously coming through the ranks in weightlifting, but even with business, you know, friends from school thinking that posting content on social media is cringe. You know, like what's the harm in just supporting someone? Like if someone just puts a video up on their social medias, trying to help someone out, why you gotta send that around and go, oh, he looks so stupid, look at him, oh, like, oh, look at this guy, he just looks like a fool. Like, at least they're trying, you know. You can't hate someone putting content out there. And the majority of these people that hate on you for trying to be better aren't doing content themselves. They're not trying to give any free advice out there like I'm doing on my YouTube channel. They're not exposing themselves. So yeah, guys, just wrapping up this video. That's just my thoughts on the last video that I made. A little bit of a clickbaity sort of caption. I made a mistake for my last video. Nothing really happened in that regards. Like it was all G. But yeah, just want to touch on that. I don't really want to make content like that again. Although it got a really good response and a good interaction, I just don't feel like that's the direction I want to follow with my channel. You know, just basically telling people about my experiences and just putting it out there, but knowing that no solutions are going to be available, and just kind of feel like I'm just being a victim. And I don't like that, you know what I mean? So it would have been great, honestly, if someone from maybe Australian Weightlifting Federation reached out, or someone from the Olympic Commission, or someone of importance maybe reached out and said, hey, Kyle, saw your video. Not going to make it a problem, but let's talk about it. You know, let's have a chat. That would have been cool, but that didn't happen. So again, I'm kind of just talking to a blank wall here, you know? So anyways, guys, hope you like this video. It's nothing really much going on. I'm just going to put it up and edit it. So like, comment, subscribe as always, and look forward to further content in the future, not talking about things like this and just being more about lifting and helping you guys out. Thanks.